Thanks, guys. A Fox News alert. A flood of new information is coming out about Minnesota's massive fraud scandal. Each new revelation is fueling more and more demands for answers from Democrat Governor Tim Walz and his administration. The FBI saying it's massing resources to get those answers. This is the Faulkner Focus. Hello, everyone. I'm Julie Banderas, in for Harris today. So an independent journalist is documenting some damning sites at multiple Somali-run child care centers in Minneapolis. The videos are shocking. They show misspelled signs, boarded up windows, locked doors at no children at the centers that reportedly received millions of dollars in state and federal funding. That journalist is now speaking out about his findings. Watch.
I've known about the fraud taking place for a long time. Minnesotans have been telling me for a long time about the Somali fraud that is taking place. And with his help, we were able to crack over $110 million in fraud in one day. And that's just the tip. When people say it's the tip of the iceberg, it really is, because there's billions of fraud inside the state of Minnesota right now. A kindergartner could figure out that there's fraud going on.
Walz's office pushed back against the videos, saying, quote, the governor has worked for years to crack down on fraud and asked the state legislature for more authority to take aggressive action. He has strengthened oversight, including launching investigations into these specific facilities, end quote. House Majority Whip and Minnesota Republican Tom Emmer with this.
If what they're saying is real and can be documented, and what they're saying is they told Tim Walz about the fraud when it was happening, and he not only ignored them, he retaliated against him. I'm telling you, Molly, if that's accurate and it can be proven, Tim Walz needs to be held accountable. Everybody in his administration needs to be held accountable. It's time that we find answers to all these questions and hold everybody accountable.
Congressman Chip Roy is coming up, but first, Garrett Tenney has more on this mess. Hi, Garrett.
Hey, Julie. One of the most surprising things about this new alleged fraud in the child care space in Minneapolis is that it really isn't new at all. There have been reports about this very thing happening since even before Tim Walz took office, and it appears that it has largely been allowed to continue without much interruption. One example of a child care business that is now under the microscope is Quality Learning Center, or Leering Center, as the sign says. The business is licensed for 99 children, from infants to toddlers, but the business hours are from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. Over the past 3 years, it has been cited for more than 120 violations for all kinds of things, including for not having proper documentation for all of the kids there. Despite that, the local ABC station reported back in January that the business has still been able to receive nearly $8 million in federal tax money since 2019. We've also confirmed that the owners took out more than $200,000 in PPP loans during the pandemic that were completely forgiven. Nick Shirley says there were similar red flags at some of the other child care centers that he tried to visit in the Twin Cities.
It's so obvious. If you're living in Minnesota, you have to raise your eyebrows and think, what's going on? Literally, if you drive around Minnesota, around Minneapolis, you'll see daycare centers, autism centers. You will then see transportation companies that have snow piled up as if they haven't moved in months.
After Shirley's videos went viral, FBI Director Kash Patel posted that the Bureau is all over this, saying fraud that steals from taxpayers and robs vulnerable children will remain a top FBI priority in Minnesota and nationwide. The FBI believes this is just the tip of a very large iceberg. We will continue to follow the money and protect children, and this investigation very much remains ongoing. While Governor Tim Walz and other state officials are now claiming that they are taking steps to investigate and to keep this from happening again, remember, these claims of fraud in child care centers are not new. In fact, all the way back in 2018, as Walz was making his first run for governor, sources in the Somali community told our local station, KMSP, that it was an open secret that starting a daycare center and billing the federal government for it was like getting a license to make money. Julie?
Garrett Tenney, thank you. Republican Congressman Chip Roy of Texas, member of the Judiciary Budget and Rules Committees, joins me now. Thank you so much for talking to us. All right, so let's just talk about Walz and his credibility here when he says that he didn't know that any of this was going on when it's such a massive fraud scandal. How could he not know?
Yeah, Julie, great to be with you. I hope you had a Merry Christmas. And,
you too.
You know, it defies all logic and reason to believe that Governor Walz was ignorant of what was happening in Minnesota. Let's be clear. He was campaigning on it last year with respect to the campaign with Vice President Harris in her run for the presidency. He literally was talking about it. Thank God that President Trump won that election. Thank God that we do not have a Harris-Walz presidency, because they would be encouraging this to continue, whereas this president is rooting out the fraud, securing the border, stopping the flow of people into our country. But this is what happens when you have massive welfare programs that are funding people that are coming into our country, whether it's illegally or, frankly, through legal channels that are being abused by the radical left and the Marxists who want this to occur. The Somali community knew full well what they were doing. It's a part of an enterprise-wide effort that's global, tied to the United Nations, tied to world organizations, NGOs, our own taxpayer dollars that are being used against us while we import people to be put on the welfare state, to be put on Medicaid, and to take taxpayer money. It's fraud that has to be stopped, and people need to be removed, deported, denaturalized, and sent back to Somalia.
I just want to know, how are they going to recoup that money? I mean, is that what Walz is now going to concentrate on? Because he says that investigations are ongoing in these centers, but where's the money? And why should taxpayers have to foot the bill? Who's going to end up paying the government back? Or is it going to be the responsibility of Congress, of taxpayers?
Well, importantly, I'm really proud that we've at least put some fraud protection in the big, beautiful bill, working with President Trump and what we did with the work requirements and Medicaid, because we knew that there was ripe for abuse. But we've got to go a lot farther at the federal level, and we've got to hold states accountable. Right now, they know what they're doing, and they're trying to take this money. And by the way, this is the tip of the iceberg. Let's go look at what Gavin Newsom in California, what they're doing with the billions of dollars. And we know there is massive Medicaid fraud going on in California. We've got to stop that at the federal level and at the state level. And look, one of the reasons I'm leaving Congress to run for Attorney General, Medicaid fraud is a central element of being Attorney General of a state. Keith Ellison was neck deep in all of this. Keith Ellison is friendly with CARE, friendly with groups that are affiliated with the Muslim Brotherhood. All of this stuff is connected. And if we don't recognize that, then we're not going to win this battle, because it's a purposeful effort to exploit our laws, to allow people to come to this country, try to Islamify our country, and use the welfare state to do it.
Critics are also asking why Congresswoman Ilhan Omar's husband reportedly purged key officer official details from his $25 million venture capital firm's website. Now, this move comes amid growing questions about the couple's wealth and possible connection to the welfare fraud. According to her latest financial disclosure in May, the couple's net worth surged 3,500% in just 1 year. It estimates now putting it anywhere from $6 million to $30 million. Their net worth went up 3,500%. How do you explain that? And then talk about the scrubbing on the website. That doesn't look good. What's Walz doing about that? Is he looking into this?
Well, certainly not. I mean, he's certainly supportive of whatever they're doing. And this is one of the other things that we need to address, is the extent to which members of Congress find themselves getting wealthy while they're in Congress. In this case, it appears by being completely in bed with all of the fraudulent activity that's going on in Minnesota. Of course, we should investigate this. Of course, should we look into what they're scrubbing from their website. I think we've got to explore this as far as we can, including potentially looking into denaturalizing and removing Ilhan Omar if she's violated our laws. And by the way, we should also ban stock trading among members of Congress, since we're talking about the wealth of Congress, and I have a bill to do that, and I hope we will do that next year. Mike Johnson, the Speaker, is working with us to do that. We have got to stop all of this flow of dollars that is corrupting our system, empower the American people to do what they do best, and we've got to pause immigration. I introduced a bill to pause immigration because we've got to stop this massive abuse of our system, using H-1Bs, using diversity visas. President Trump is exactly right to have frozen the diversity visas, to have stopped that, to freeze the flow from countries of concern. Remember that in 1920, when we had a high percentage of people that were foreign-born, we froze immigration for 40 years. And our country vanquished, the Nazis in Germany, freed the world. We did great things in those 40 years. We can do it again. That's why I introduced legislation to pause immigration. The president's right to do that, and I'm supporting him in that effort.
Okay, meantime, the Trump administration is working to highlight its achievements this year ahead of next year's midterm elections. And commentator Scott Jennings says that one victory is bigger than the rest. What is it? Let's watch.
I think on the immigration piece, it's been his biggest success this year. It's the biggest promise fulfilled. We've had 2.5 million people deported. A significant number of them were self-deported. You know, they used the government's app or just decided to leave the country altogether. I know the left has treated this as some big controversy, but I don't know what's controversial about the president just simply enforcing the laws that are on the books.
And the numbers back that up. The Department of Homeland Security says that more than 2.5 million illegal immigrants have left the U.S. since Trump took office, nearly 2 million of those electing to self-deport. And the White House also says that 0 illegal immigrants have been released into the United States for 7 straight months. The Democrats call that horrible. What say you?
Well, I do think this is the greatest achievement of the presidency. They've dropped down the flow at the border to 0. We feel it in Texas. We're a much safer and stronger country as a result. The president is right. Tom Homan, Stephen Miller, Kristi Noem, all of the great work of ICE and Border Patrol, they're standing behind them. ICE is removing people that need to be removed. But let's add to that this next year. Let's stop the abuse of our legal immigration system. Let's permanently make reforms so that you can't have H-1Bs and diversity visas that are messing up our country by importing people who are using our welfare system, which you opened this segment with. The president should be congratulated, his entire team, for what they're doing. But we got to finish the job, and Congress needs to codify what the president has been doing so you can't have a future Biden and Mayorkas that destroys the system. Let's pause immigration. Let's reform the system. Let's make permanent changes to back up what the president's done. And by the way, one underreported piece, the SUE Act, which we included in the Lake and Riley Act last January, which was a bill that I authored with Dan Bishop, that was included, which allows states to sue the federal government if they fail to secure the border in the future so that we can stop a future Biden-Mayorkas administration from doing that. We're doing a lot of great things, but Congress needs to back the president up in 2026.
Congressman Chip Roy, thank you, and have a happy new year.
Happy New Year, Julie. God bless.